All right. We get to just keep on keeping on today. And today we are going to do the live read for chapter 4. All right. So today is going to be chapter 4 of the Voyagers 1 book, The Sleeping Abductees. And I'm just getting everything set up so that we can get going and I can say hello to those of you that get to join in live through this reading today. And here we go. Perfect, perfect. So with so much love, we're just continuing on with Voyagers 1. This is going to be chapter 4. We're going to move right through it. The last chapters of this book, chapter 4, 5, 6, 7, they're all pretty long chapters, and I'm going to do my best to get through them. Just to know that chapter 4, honestly, is just kind of a lot of repeat. It's going to go a lot into the interior government again, some of the stuff about the Zetas. So this chapter in particular feels a little bit like it's just going to be going over a lot of what we've already mentioned. But I wanted to, before we get started, just put out the invitation. If this information is starting to awaken some stuff for you, I know within the Soul Circle group, there's a lot of you that are having a lot more dreams, memories kind of surfacing through the validation of going through this. And it's really kind of honestly more the validation of going through this as a group. We get to really feel the collective consciousness expanding through this. So please know that if you go to the website withbecca.com, there's all kinds of resources there, but we have a very loving Christar community there that you can join right in, not be alone through all of this anymore, and to feel supported. I'm also launching a more of an advanced core membership group to really help us expand in building our energy fields, to really work with this Keylontic information in order to build out our body systems so that we are not influenced by any of the negative agendas any longer. So with that, that's just an invitation I have for you to dive right in, to being part of a group, a community, if you feel so guided through this information. So with that, let's get started, because again, like I'm saying, these chapters are a little bit longer and we want to get through them, and we are going to just dive right into chapter 4. So within this, as we get started with this, one of the things I actually want to do, we're going to start here with chapter 4. I want to kind of recap something that I think is really interesting through the Voyagers materials and even through just Ashiana Dean's material in general. And that is that in this particular book, she brings up a bunch of races that she actually never talks about again in any of the other materials. I do find that very interesting. So I want to highlight that just even as an interesting fact with this Voyagers 1 book. She talks about the Zionites, which are a human Zeta Athean race line of beings. She talks about the Boran groups. We went over that in chapters 2 and 3, primarily chapter 3. And these are going to be Zeta hybrids from a lot of the infusion with the human DNA, the Borans, and there's the Borans that are really referred to as assisting and helping. I find that very interesting that they aren't ever really talked about again. In Voyagers 2, you're going to see the Turanusiums, obviously the race and the tribes that we emerge from, and really kind of a lot about those histories, the Syrian Anunnakis, the Pleiadians. And in Voyagers too, I mean, it goes into a plethora of all of these other races, but interestingly enough, does not talk about like the Boran or these hybrids and these types of race lines and beings. So I find that very interesting that, for us as we get to look at this, maybe kind of starting to explore what other names they might be more commonly known to us as we work with them. And again, another one was the Zephalium. which was the blue-skinned administrators of the Zeta races. So I wanted to come back all the way up here, if you have this Voyagers 1 book, and into page 63 and 64. She had a couple images she drew here. And this one was the intruders. The intruders being here the Syrian Anunnaki that we are very, very familiar with, hybrid race line that has really been working to hijack this solar system, primarily started with trying to hijack the Pleiades. We got the Dracos, the Dracon, which are a human hybrid with the Dracos, the Zephalium, which is mentioned here in this, which looks like it would be this one right here in the middle. And then there's the Zeta Gray Rigelian and the Rutilia. So different types of Zeta hybrids within here. So Zeta and Draco hybrids, or the EB. We would see things like the EB mentioned in a lot of other things, even governmental documents and things like that. And so that would be interesting to cross-reference in there. And then these are the list of the guardians. So you're going to see that the guardians are going to have all kinds of different appearances as well. She has the mantis being up here. I will tell you my personal experiences with the mantis race line. That is not exactly how they look. So I'd be curious if you've had your own personal experiences, what some of these vibrational beings look like to you. So we're going to have the Zionite being over here, the Athean, the mantis-looking being, the Lyran Syrian Elder here in the middle, the Quintivalar, which is more kind of like what we think as a Bigfoot type of being. So then there is also the hybrid, or the Tyrannusium being, so kind of our race lines, our original race lines, going into there. Zionite human, going to be within here. Actually, I think it's this being over here on the right-hand side. The Arcturian and the Zeta Gray, and then the Ranthinkia, these beings. And I actually have had a few experiences where catching glimpses of these beings doing sessions with individuals. And they don't manifest in the 3D physical reality at all. They're very high vibrational, but quite fascinating because they have a very different feel. And I believe actually um, this one over on the left bottom would be the Arcturian, maybe, or no, the gray. Sometimes I get confused which picture's which that she has on here. Anyways, moving on. I don't want to spend too much time here, but I just wanted to show these to you guys. So if you have this book, you can go in here, meditate on them. It's a neat cross-reference. There are books out there of others that have put their experience with different races and beings. So, what we're doing is we're really compiling the best way we know how to start to get to know our galactic family, our inner Earth family, so on and so forth. So with that, let's go ahead and dive in. I just want to pause really quick and say so much love to all of you that are joining in. I love this. Good morning, good evening, good afternoon, wherever you are. Peace and wholeness to you too, Goddess Essence. So much love, Stellar Shriner, Robin, Freedom, White Dove. So much love, Beth. Big hugs to you, Adam. So much love to you. So with that, let's dive right in. Chapter 4. Hidden Motives and Mechanics. Learning dramas. We've talked about the Zeta involvement with humans at this time who act in violation of universal law, which dictates brotherhood and cooperation. You exist within a free will universe, and because of this freedom, there is much greater leeway of experience than in other systems that operate upon a formatted structure of predetermined action. But in a free will zone, there's also drawbacks. From the perspective of security, conformity, and playing by the rules, there are rules in operation within all universal structures. These rules serve as a primary set of agreements which allow for the contours of a chosen reality to unfold into a platform upon which life dramas and experiential learning will take place. In a free will zone, one of the rules or base agreements is that participants within that reality have the right have the choice to play by the rules or ignore them, creating their own versions as they go along. The rules within your particular system prescribe brotherhood, cooperation, and harmony between all portions of reality. But the rules also have designed for you a polarized universe wherein all things exist within a duality of perception. It is this feature of your system that allows for the experience of free will to take place. Duality allows you the choice of breaking the rules or following, of working with the flow of natural evolution or against it. Each choice will provide for you a consequence of action, or seemingly so from your focus of perception. In greater terms, each choice will show you a manifest translation of the ideas you entertain. If those ideas move with the flow of evolution, you will experience a perceived state of ease, feelings of lightness and pleasure, and you will expand or grow into ever greater reality fields. If you are moving against the flow of evolution, you will experience the opposite of these conditions, which is tension, heaviness, displeasure, and contraction as you digress into ever smaller fields of reality and identity. Both paths exist simultaneously. One implies the other. They exist together as parts of a greater whole that is dimensional reality. Your choices will determine experience while you are in a polarized system, and thus you learn to make better choices. The Zeta who inflict their experiments upon humans without consensual agreements from the sole identity of the human are making a choice to move against the flow of evolution, just as those humans who violate the free will and birthrights of brotherhood of their co-inhabitants of Earth are choosing to digress. Violation ultimately breeds the same. Through the action consequence ratio may be spread out over time, where the balance of universal law is not easy to detect. The law of reciprocity, or what goes around comes around, is one of the rules within your universe. It applies directly to all that you do and all that you experience. But in your present state of evolution, most of this balancing takes place upon a subconscious level. Because of this, many things may seem senseless to you. You may witness violation of yourself or others and wonder at the seeming unfairness of the universe or God. Many of you view death as the ultimate victimization, especially for those who appear to be victims of an untimely or unjust demise. You are seeing the surface of events, and without knowing the greater dramas those surface events are linked to it, can often appear that they are without cause or purpose. In viewing from the surface, only you may easily misunderstand the seeming rules or lack of them that allow such apparent violations to take place. Three-dimensional reality can seem quite threatening, unjust, and chaotic when viewed from the surface perceptions proved by your five known senses. This is an illusion, very real from your perspective, that seems to be true because the true justice, purpose, reason, and order behind the events and the true mechanisms of the universal law are hidden from your view. You do not have all of the puzzle pieces, to use an analogy, and so it's difficult to make sense out of the picture. As your race evolves, its perceptual range expands, more puzzle pieces, and more puzzle pieces will be found. And as you grow, you will begin to see a very different picture of the universe than the one you presently hold. You will discover the order behind the chaos, the justice within the injustice, and the reality behind the illusion. Just one quick pause there. I think we all know very easily that this is talking about basically the laws of karma, and that all of this is embedded within our soul field. So really our soul holds the records of all of these memories that we go through in any incarnational experiences within the first harmonic universe. So dimensions 1, 2, and 3. And then ranging and holding the soul imprint that is coming from dimensions 4, the astral realm, 5, and 6. So as we look at this energy, there's one thing I want to touch into for you guys. Even in Anton Park's books, and I forget which one it is, there's a point in there where Barbello is piecing together the records. They've forgotten their history, and you're going to see why this is important. They've forgotten their memories, they forgot their histories, they forgot what happened in the past. And as Barbello started to put the puzzle pieces together, the realization came forward that it was the negative thoughts, the worry, the fear, and the emotions of the collective. So think of that as the subconscious. It's not, they weren't physically doing something to another, they were actually emanating it from the subconscious field. And the emanations from the thought field or the subconscious field is actually what threw off the stargates and started to create a lot of the distress and digression within. So there's such validity to this. We may think, oh, why are these things happening to me in this lifetime? We many times think that the thoughts that we're thinking in our head or the emotions that we're having that we maybe aren't expressing out loud are our own little secret, but they're not. And we're learning that we do have to take a massive responsibility for every thought, feeling, and emotion that we've placed into the ripples or the waves of creation. So that is how we start to see the larger picture and take full responsibility for every way we've ever expressed ourselves in every incarnation. One day you will come to master the experience of three-dimensional reality and will no longer find yourselves trapped within its confines. But until that time, you are dealing with duality, free will, choice, and the responsibility of learning how to direct your choices wisely. The Zeta and all others within the dimensionalized systems are learning these basic lessons in their own way and through their own path of development. Learning can seem difficult when moving against the flow of evolution, or it can be achieved with ease when moving with the flow. Zetas and humans share many of the same lessons, and they will play within your three-dimensional drama great teachers to each other and will eventually learn the consequences of maneuvering within the structures of universal law. The consequences can be a great delight or they can seem quite treacherous. Either way, learning takes place, and that is why the soul awareness allows for consequences to be experienced. When identity becomes integrated in the human or other biological being grows to encompass the soul awareness, the need for treacherous outcomes declines. Souls as groupings of identities are also learning and reaching for integration of the greater identity structures of which they are a part. The greater the amount of integration of awareness that takes place, the less treachery is experienced. All life forms share a common goal of growth and expansion. The impetus towards growth is one of the primary rules within your universe. Growth into comprehension of the mechanics of brotherhood is the rite of passage. All will eventually pass through. When the interconnectedness of all things is recognized as one of the basic universal laws, the cognition and practice of brotherhood will be achieved. Though the Zeta generally are advanced in intellectual growth and technological achievement compared to the human, many of them possess no greater spiritual awareness than the average human of your time. Many Zeta fall behind humans in regards to true spiritual cognition, for they do not possess the biological systems that allow for the characteristics you call emotion. Emotion is far more than you realize. You use this term to describe the perceived results of a process organic to your form, but you rarely glimpse the reality of that process in terms. Emotion is the product of the seventh sense, which can be called cellular absorption. We will detail the mechanics of this sense in other writings. It is the ability present in the cellular level to filter energy and frequency, create energetic imprints of that filtered energy, and translate the imprints into packages of perception that are then used to feed information to the other senses. All body mechanisms are regulated through this faculty within the human organism, and it allows for the development of tremendous potentials within the human species. The Zeta biology is set up differently. As we previously described in Zeta described, the zeta presently involved in your system are mutations from their original form. That mutation occurred as a result of their experiments in dimensional blending. Originally, they did possess a sense faculty similar to that of the human emotive structure, which allowed them greater freedom to connect with the universal energy grid systems that support the third dimension. With the mutation, they lost this ability. They became trapped within their own biology, and their soul identities became severed from the greater structures from which they had been created. The Zeta were, in essence, cut off from their central power source. Their species became disconnected from the soul matrix. So this is really powerful if you guys are getting this, because this is showing us how important emotions are, but it's also starting to show us our importance for connecting to our soul field, our soul matrix, to have that interconnectedness, but also giving us an understanding of individuals upon the planet who seem to have a disconnect from their emotional body. This is also going to tie in. I don't know if the Voyagers 1 is going to go into it, but something called the Zeta Seal that was placed over our heart center, which was a mechanism to really cut us off from our true fourth dimensional band of connectedness to our soul matrix. So it was a way for the negative zetas to really keep us in these lower vibrational frequencies. So that is one of the things that as you start to increase maturity of your emotive body and truly activating your heart and your heart center, really reaching for your double diamond heart, you are truly going to disband the influence of a lot of these negative alien influences. If I could just keep emphasizing that your heart is the key. Your heart is the key. Love is the key. Love, it transcends. It's so powerful. The tree of life. Within the dimensional systems, enter those systems through a web work of interconnected energy strands. There is a precise pattern to system entry, just as your computers have precise codes of access to their operations. If you imagine the structural growth pattern of branches upon trees, you can get a rough visual representation of the energy web work we describe. The tiniest bud is connected to the whole through a system of intricate relays or branches. Nourishment is sent to the bud via this pathway, replenishing and sustaining all of the many buds that grow upon the tree. The energy web work of which your soul and all of its personalities is part can be compared to this network of branches in the tree's energy distribution system. Like the bud, the soul exists as one expression or aspect of the greater network out of which it grows. The personalities or incarnations of the soul can be compared to the leaves emerging out of the bud. They are birthed, grow, and die only to be replenished and born anew within the next cycle of the seasons. As the leaves exist as part of the tree, each taking up a different placement in space, but existing together simultaneously, following the cycle of the seasons, so too exist the personalities of the soul. Viewing placement in time for the personality as you view placement in time for the leaves and trees will help you to understand the nature of time and identity. It will also help you to better understand your distorted concept of reincarnation. Humans are connected to a soul that exists as part of a greater network of life. We refer to the entire network as the energy matrix, in the world within which the tree grows in your analogy. The tree in our analogy would represent an energy, a structure we call the time matrix. As the tree exists within a world, the time matrix exists within the energy matrix. The leaves of our tree exist within and emanate out of that bud, just as the personalities exist within and emanate out of the soul. In our analogy, the bud would represent that which we call the soul matrix or Dora matrix. Just as the leaf implies the existence of the bud and tree, the fact of your existence implies the existence of a soul matrix, an energy matrix system. So this tree analogy is not just some whimsical metaphor they're picking. This is the Druidic teachings. And the Druids, as we know, are not just part of the Celtic culture. They're a part of the Zoroastrian, they're a part of the Brahmin teachings, they're a part of the Essene teachings. Basically, the Druidic teachings are part of the Blue Ray teachings, part of this Christic teachings. And this is why you see in so many symbologies the tree as above, so below, with the root system. It really is a metaphor and a literal, because it manifests as above, so below. In the energy matrix, as is in the 3D physical matrix, the representation of our soul matrix, which we'll see if they dive into the oversoul matrix or the avatar Christ matrix, the Rishik matrix, so on and so forth. These systems of which we are part of actually just keep kind of like just again higher levels of as above, so below keep replicating. The Zeta are also part of such a tree of identity. Their species, like your own, would represent a bud on a cosmic tree in terms of our analogy. We explained before how the Zeta inadvertently collapsed the time portal system surrounding their home planet. You could compare their portal structure to the branch on a tree. If a branch is dismembered from the tree upon which it grows, not only will the branch wither and die, but so will the buds and leaves that depend upon that branch to support and transport nourishment and life force energy from the tree. There is an intimate connection between the time portal system and the genetic code of all life forms within it. When the time portals are damaged, the genetic imprint of biological life is altered, mutated from its original pattern. When the Zeta disengaged their time portals from the main grid of the time matrix, it caused their mutation. Their biology no longer carries the appropriate codes to allow them to link into their source. They lost the ability to experience emotion to a large degree, and the emotional faculty can be compared to the branch systems of our tree. The Zeta are able to draw energy from their souls, but their souls can no longer draw energy from the time matrix, energy matrix, or source. Once the leaves fall, the bud can no longer renew itself if it cannot draw energy from the tree. The Zeta are as leaves and buds stunted upon and with a withering branch that has been severed from the tree, a dying race unless they are able to once again mutate their biological strain into the time matrix and the energy matrix system. You can almost think of that as they're trying to regraft themselves back onto the tree. I'm sure she's going to say it here. Though through genetics, they are attempting to create what we would be compared to as a splice, taking their fallen branch and reintroducing it to another tree in hopes that that splice will take place. Their home tree exists within another forest, an area in the galaxy that they can no longer return to as the road of transit has been destroyed. If you can understand a bit more about the nature of your own reality and the matrices and you will be more prepared to comprehend the plight of the Zeta and why they have interest in your race. Perhaps you will be able to forgive them of their violations against you if you can realize it is ignorance and desperation that drive them to use methods that go against the flow of evolution. Just as forgiveness and re-education are the most appropriate means to deal with fellow humans who cause other violations, so it is too when considering the Zeta. Violation is caused by ignorance to universal law, period. And its only true remedy is growth to awareness and enlightenment. Some Zeta have grown into higher understanding, working with the aforementioned the Athean and other groups such as the Ranthia. They have agreed to work in brotherhood under policies of non-violation and have committed to serving the flow of evolution for all species, not only their own. These enlightened Zeta are beginning to see how the law of reciprocity operates. As they extended fairness, compassion, and the desire to cooperate with other life forms, they found the same gifts being extended on their behalf. Guardian intervention. The Athean and some other advanced interdimensional races agreed to assist the Zeta in creating mutations in their lineage through genetic engineering. Athean are masters in this regard, and with the Zeta, they created a plan that would serve the good of all species involved. Previously, the Zeta groups attempting to go from Zeta human hybrids We're aiming for a being that would be a function like humans within the three-dimensional Earth system. If they were successful in creating such a hybrid, yet another species would be entered into the Earth in competition for its resources. This plan was bound to fail and create hardship for the Zeta, the humans and Earth itself. It would create a battle zone, which was not in the best interest of anyone involved. This plan would also create the disaster foretold by your visionary Nostradamus. If the original Zeta plan had been allowed to unfold, you would have experienced your own version of Star Wars right here on Earth. The visions of nuclear holocaust many of your seers picked up on came from the future event in which the Zetas invaded Earth because they felt the humans were not capable of working cooperatively, and there was no other option but to take the space and resources they needed. This event would have indeed marked the end of time as you know it. We have mentioned before that other intelligence has been watching over your planet since its beginnings. The events of the pending Zeta-human clash were observed by some of these groups, and the potential for that probable event moved as that event moved closer to fulfillment. In the mid-1980s, a decision was made by the observers. It was agreed that humans had enough growth towards brotherhood and had evolved to at least a minimum degree wherein the scheduled event was worthy of outside intervention. The Watchers, as we will call them, decided to help, as many humans had requested this assistance. Humans who knew some of what was brewing knew that something dangerous was approaching. The Watcher set in motion an alternative plan, enlisting the help of the Athean, Ranthia, Ashtar, and other groups. Some were assigned to helping the humans accelerate their spiritual evolution so they would not react with malice when encountering the Zeta. Others were assigned to assisting the Zeta and to finding other alternatives for them. The Athean and the Ranthia began to work closely with the Zeta. They formulated a plan in which hybrids would be created using human genetic material, but this could only be done if the soul identity of the human was in agreement. As the Zeta already possessed some of these abilities in multidimensional acclimatization, another environment better suited to their biology and needs was found. An Earth existing within another dimensional band adjacent to your Earth, but not within the third dimension, was chosen. Certain adjustments would have to be made to the hybrid strain they were developing so as to assist it in its transplant into the new environment. The Athean knew how to orchestrate these alterations. So with the help of numerous groups, the Zeta agenda was swifted away from the pending Holocaust and towards a peaceful, co-creative, cooperative plan that would open new options for growth for both the human and Zeta lineage. Humans do not presently realize the great times are upon them, nor do they comprehend the scope of meaning of the tragedy they just barely avoided. You, as humans, do not realize what gratitude is in order. The majority of Zeta in your towards brotherhood, and with the Athean, Ranthia, and others offer what assistance they can to humans on the quest of enlightenment. Most Zeta can be trusted, but it is difficult for them to convey this sentiment to those humans they interact with because they are so often met with fear, anger, and violent reactions due to human misunderstanding. Even though most Zeta can now be trusted in their dealings with humans, there are certain factions of the race who have not yet agreed to the new agenda. We refer to those factions simply as the unenlightened Zeta. The unenlightened ones are those responsible for numerous abductions in which pain was caused to the human, not merely frightening encounters, but mild testing, but actual physical or mental harm. We are not happy to inform you that quite a few of your mentally ill population became impaired as a result of the activities of the unenlightened groups. And I would even say this is hugely the types of experimentations and things that happen upon collectives of humanity that most humanity doesn't pay attention to, and not only those that would maybe be locked away, say, in mental institutions, but these would be our homeless populations, I think, are subjected to a lot of this. So, because soul agreements are not involved in such abductions, the Zeta responsible had little clues as to what tactics were useful and what was harmful. They experimented randomly, such as your scientists do with laboratory rats. Some of your missing persons cases are also caused by these intrusions. For a time, the unenlightened ones did not comprehend the genetic orientation of the human and did not know of the aforementioned silicate matrix within some of the populace. They assumed that all humans could undergo dimensional transmigration. Numerous subjects were lost in attempting to transport them into craft stationed beyond the third dimensional frequencies. Some were actually lost in time, thrown into the past or future of your time continuum because the relationships between the time portals and the human genetic structure were not understood by these groups. Certain cases, but not all, of the spontaneous combustion reported in your present time occurred at the hands of the Zeta abduction attempts that went wrong. These tragedies took place and still occasionally do because of Zeta ignorance to the human structure and because no attempt was made by them to contact the soul identities of the human subjects. Like many humans, many Zeta do not understand the reality of their connection to soul. And because they do not comprehend this reality in themselves, they do not validate it within other life forms. The enlightened Zeta are learning of these things from the Athean and Ranthia. Those who are willing to learn, and there are many, they are being trained in contact procedures that do not violate the integrity of the human subjects. The groups who are working towards brotherhood can be easily identified as there will always be among them the Athean, the Ranthian, who sometimes take on human guise during working with humans, or the Zionite, as previously discussed, guardians serving as hosts, advisors, teachers, healers, or in positions of command. It is important that humans become aware of the Zeta presence and learn to distinguish between the enlightened and those that may bring them harm. One tactic of differentiation that is useful during abduction encounters is that of holding in mind Zeta can see your mental pictures. So hold in mind the image of one of the guardian races. So you, again, so I love that they guided us to show those pictures of the images at the beginning. So it's saying, see the guardian images. Again, those are, I think, on page 63 and 64. If you are dealing with an enlightened Zeta, you will be greeted with a response of curiosity and positive acknowledgement. If it is an unenlightened Zeta, the reaction will be one of tension and of hands-off stance. As a Zeta who are aware of the guardians and have chosen not to cooperate are intimidated by them. I'm going to give you guys one more thing, and this is something the guardians shared, and they said that anytime you come in contact with anyone, whether it's in a dream state, an abduction type of scenario kind of state, that you always want to vet them and just say, show me your true form, show me your true form, show me your true form. I love that they're saying hold the mental picture of a guardian in your mind, because what you're saying is also, are you in alignment with Christ's light? Are you in alignment with Christ's light? Are you in alignment with Christ's light? Are you in alignment to the Christos mission? So basically you're asking them whether or not they're in alignment to what she's referring to in this book as brotherhood. And the experiences I've had are exactly this. If it is a guardian race, if it is one that is working in a benevolent energy, they will actually be a very open energy. It's almost like they will smile, they will be proud of you, they will have this open receptivity to like being very appreciative that you are having the discernment to ask this question. If it is one that has ill intent or what we would consider a negative alien agenda, they immediately get hostile. There's a constricting energy. They will show their true form because in that field you will start to see their true energy signature. So please, 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 if there's one thing you're taking from this whole book, definitely grab on to this right here. This very important because many are having more and more contact, and the negative alien agenda takes holographic images from your mind many times to project it back to you so that you will feel receptive to what they're actually doing to you, even if it's against your free will or against the soul matrix. So when you ask those questions, it immediately reveals to you whether or not you should be consenting to share your energy with that individual. So again, if it is an unenlightened zeta, right here at the bottom, if it is an unenlightened zeta, the reaction will be one of tension and a hands-off stance. As a zeta who are aware of the guardians and have chosen not to cooperate with them are intimidated by them. When dealing with zeta who do not know of these overseers, you may still hold the image in mind and request assistance. Zeta still have a strong link to the collective zeta mind. Though they now operate independently, you can still reach the collective by projecting your thoughts through one of its individual members. The impressions will be picked up by one of the helping groups if it is strong enough. Zeta manipulate through the mind, and humans must learn to do the mind-to-mind combat and to redirect the harmful Zeta rather than attempt to destroy them. They cannot be fought successfully by humans, but they can be redirected into haggling it out with their own kind. The enlightened Zeta and their groups working with them are the humans' best allies and protecting themselves from the harmful Zeta. The enlightened groups are doing the best they can to redirect their strayed brethren to the new benign agenda. Humans engaged in encounters with the tormentors are urged to assist in this redirection. Reactions of fear, anger, and panic will do nothing to protect you. But staying centered in your own identity with the intention of redirecting the abductors will prove well worth your while. In helping yourself, you will be helping others also. A universal law in operation. Humans are being called upon to pass on this vision of hope to those who need it most. The abductors who have yet to learn the wisdom of co-creative brotherhood and their fellow humans who are learning the same lessons. Yes, please do not take on any of these things on your own. Always call for the assistance of the guardian races. Let them step in and let all of this be directed through your higher self. Zeta conspiracy. The Zeta following the old agenda believe themselves to be desperate. They are weakening. Their bodies and abilities are failing. Though the majority of the Zeta have transferred to the new agenda, there are still several 100,000 following the old plan, both in your dimension and in those surrounding it. Collectively, they still represent quite a force that can impact your future adversely if it is acknowledged or allowed to go unchecked. They are presently trying to orchestrate through the workings of your interior government, previously discussed. A travesty upon your system, your species. Let me just kind of reset here. The humans involved in this scheme are blinded by the pursuit of power and domination, and it is because of their involvement and willing participation that the old agenda still looms as a potential threat to your system. Though much assistance is being offered to your species from the guardian races, the events you encounter will still be consequences of your choices individually and collectively. How many of your members will blindly follow the dictates of leadership, a leadership that unknowingly grows more and more influenced by the presence of the interior government? How many will have the courage and ability to poke their heads above the programming enough to begin to ask the right questions? How many will dare to believe stories such as this that challenge everything the program has taught you to believe? How many humans will embrace the value of their personal essence and follow it to the spiritual awakening? The answers to these questions will determine what reality awaits you as you proceed into the 21st century. Presently, your interior government thinks it's manipulating the Zeta. It has been working with them on the old agenda for several decades. And these humans have as their human agenda a quest for world power. These humans think nothing of betraying their own people, as they have done in the past and continue to do, seeing lesser humans in their minds as expendable resources and Zeta as tools through which they can bring about their plan of global domination. You would be frightened if we told you of some of the things that have been and are presently being done. Many of you would not believe us. So conditioned have you become to unthinkingly accepting what authorities and experts tell you. Choosing to think and question is a choice, and like its opposite, it will have consequences. The interior government factions plan to continue to cooperate with the Zeta, allowing them to take what they desire from the human populace in return for technological and genetic advancements. This group of humans would love to live forever. Since they have little true spiritual comprehension, death is viewed as their greatest defeat. They are nearly obsessed with techniques, genetic or otherwise, that will prolong lifespan and deter biological deterioration. Advantages they are seeking to hoard for themselves, of course. They employ UFO debunking and witness character assassination tactics, and occasionally witness assassination to prove a cloak of secrecy for the Zeta following the old agenda. I want to take a pause right here, you guys, because this is happening right now. Okay. We have seen this in our history. How many individuals have attempted to come forward for full disclosure of assassinations. And we are even witnessing current assassination attempts that then they try to create character assassination tactics and even physical assassination. So we can see massive character assassination types of things happening, right? So within this is where we're asked to ask questions. When individuals attempt to come forward to start to reveal what is actually really happening, we see many times a mass panic from the interior government, as they're calling it here, or these negatively aligned Zetas to quickly shut down, debunk, use the word conspiracy, try to defame them, kill their character, or if they can't kill their character and get everyone to turn against them, they will try to just outright kill them. This has happened. We have seen it multiple times. And if we can really see this is not something that has just started, this is something that has gone on and on. And one of the things the Guardians have been showing is they were saying this is exactly the same thing that even happened in Akhenaten's times. So whenever the truth is trying to come through to really reconnect humanity back to the right of knowledge of what is going on, we see a massive upheaval of this chaos. And I think you and I would agree right now that there is just nothing but just asinine chaos going on in the fields right now around us. And this is, I think, a perfect time for us to be reading this book so that we start ask questions, use discernment, ask for yourself. And if you have an opinion about something without actually realizing why you get so triggered or have an opinion, please remember they use holographic inserts, mind overlays, and they are playing us against ourselves. So this is really, really important for us to understand. Otherwise, we're just going to keep going back into these Armageddon timelines. So within this, just please know they employ UFO debunking and witness character assassination tactics and occasionally witness assassination to provide a cloak of secrecy for the Zeta following the old agenda. They are dangerous people, as our translator may find when our books begin to circulate, with many resources, but they are a minority. So again, they have tons of resources. They know what they're doing, but there's more of us than there are of them. We need to remember this. What do we always say? They're the 1%. There is no safety in blindness, only blindness. Safety comes from awareness and making appropriate choices, informed choices, and that is precisely what the interior government does not want the masses to be capable of doing. They prefer to keep you distracted and will create all sorts of political, economic, and environmental strategies aimed at fueling controversy, internal conflict, and other preoccupations, so the public does not have time or energy to notice that information on many things is being withheld and misrepresented. Be aware of the tactics being used, for they are employed to sidetrack you from the covert agenda that will affect every one of you more than you know. Does availability of money affect you? Does personal security for yourself and loved ones affect you? Does your biological and psychological health affect you? For these are the specific areas through which they plan to manipulate you on a mass level. The old agenda is much larger than you suspect, and it has been progressively employed in stages. This plan is still being carried out by those involved. On the surface, you may see still waters, or perhaps little ripples here and there that just go unnoticed. They look natural enough, but did you ever think of what might lurk beneath the murky depths of the collective world government infrastructure? You have probably been too busy with more important things, just as you have been programmed to be. The interior government has approximately 100,000 key members globally at the time of this writing. No small enterprise. They are referring here to its human members. Many others are involved, but do not consciously know that they are submerged within. Once in, members rarely get out alive. This may sound like some sort of plot from a communist regime, but it is in operation beneath the democracies of the world also. At least within the dictatorships, the common people know they are not free and can make their choices accordingly. But in the democracies of the world, the people believe in the freedoms provided by their constitutions and judicial laws. They believe they are free, and in one sense, they are free from knowing that they are being compromised by an interior elite. I'm actually going to invite you guys to actually look up what a democracy means versus a republic. Because they do, guys, a lot of times through very words that become manipulated. And so when we learn our etymology, we start to become uh, far more empowered by the guardian forces. But in the democracies of the world, the people believe in the freedoms provided by their constitutions and judicial systems. They believe they are free, and in one sense they are. Remember, you feel like you're free, but really what you're free from is knowing that they are being compromised, knowing that you're being compromised by an interior elite. Free from knowing what they are being subjected to at the hands of these hidden dictators, free to think that they are alone are controlling their own destiny as they struggle to evolve within the status quo. Who do you think would benefit the most from having the public believe that UFOs were hoaxes and aliens imaginary? The public? Or do you really think your national or personal security is being protected by having the public kept in the dark about the fact that humans are not the only or the most intelligent form of life in the universe? Wouldn't you rather know the truth? Why do you think the truth is being kept from you? Who would benefit most? Questions you might choose to ponder if you ever have time for such things. These statements may anger many of you, those of you who love your free countries and the liberties they stand for. It would reduce you to tears if you knew the truth of what was going on behind your back of your own official governments. So preoccupied are your people with the surface issues that few look deep enough or far enough to begin to see the scheming that takes place underground and behind closed doors. Those who get close often disappear or meet with a terrible accident or decide to conveniently kill themselves. We are not joking. We are not exaggerating. Does this sound like democracy to you? In our opinion, it is an indignity to the concept and a desecration to the good-hearted people who would put their lives on the line to uphold their country's virtue. And so we tell you of some of the truths you may not want to hear. Now we will tell you more for those of you who desire to understand. The interior government plans to use the Zetas they pretend to cooperate with for their technology and knowledge, and when they feel confident enough in using these new acquisitions, They plan to overpower the Zeta with their weakened condition. Then they hope to further implement their plans of directing and controlling global resources. The Zeta, however, are far better at this game of strategic manipulation and have been covertly manipulating the human element within the interior government since the beginning of their involvement. It's the same all the time. Anyone going against divine law, anyone in the alignment of service to self thinking of themselves, not having empathy towards any of the other life forms in creation. This is the common story. All they're doing is scheming against themselves constantly. So if we know how to catch that, again, that the scheming energy is actually a vibration you can catch with that, I guess what they were calling the seventh sense of your emotions. But if you start to learn to really pick up on that, it starts to get way easier, way faster to start to catch the deception going on so that you start to work more closely through your soul matrix, your higher self, to the guardian forces. This is everything because this is the only way we're going to get unplugged from their technologies. Their technologies are so darshgarn advanced that they feel like their own, like they are our own thoughts, our own mind, our own emotions, but they're not. And so the more we start to learn to catch those subtle inorganic frequencies, I'm telling you guys, it's not as crazy as it sounds as far as being difficult or overwhelming. The heart literally is the most powerful vibrational frequency to work through all of this. I'm telling you that we wouldn't put a cap on our heart chakra if it wasn't that important, right? So empathy, compassion, love, those are the things we want to develop within ourselves. Law of one ways. All right, holographic inserts. One type of technology that is presently being shared by the Zeta is the artificial creation through mechanical means of holographic inserts. Zeta are able to initiate this tactic using mental applications and without mechanical devices. They have not divulged these methods to the humans, but instead convinced them that human biology was not equipped to create that level of implementation, which is only partially true. This covert Zeta and human team is planning to utilize this technology to manipulate and direct large masses of people, and they are orchestrating it in a way that will hit home with the gentlest of souls. Holographic inserts depicting religious personages and dramas have already been employed in small doses as test runs for the greater applications, faking miracles, appearances of saints and holy ones, the return of deceased loved ones. All of these personally sacred subjects are fair game to the exploitation of holographic inserts. Plans are in the making to stage dramas using the traditional as well as New Age belief systems. True miracles and visitations will also be occurring as this century closes and will continue well into the next. How will you know which events are real and which events are being manufactured to manipulate the populace? How will you know who or what to believe when you won't even be able to fully trust what your five senses are telling you? Is there a way to detect a holographic insert or to protect yourself from being victimized by them? We will address these questions and more in the following sections. If our perspective seems radical to you, upsetting, or unsettling, we apologize. It is hope that you can understand the concern and indignation on your behalf from which we speak. There are many beings, both human and otherwise, willing and able to assist you in your growth and spiritual development. There are many positive agendas taking place within your external government, scientific, and religious communities that provide needed assistance, growth opportunities, and support to the public. And there is a wealth of kind hearted, just, spiritually aware throughout your world whose dedication, love, and wisdom serve to uplift and inspire your species towards fulfillment of its vision of brotherhood. These combined with a treasury of support behind the scenes from within the multidimensional and multi-universal systems, continue to move humanity forward in its evolution despite the efforts of the interior forces to thwart them. You are progressing well into your development towards enlightenment, and we commend you. And this has been said even through governmental agencies that know of many of the species out there. I know Linda Moulton Howe, I've mentioned her a few times, also mentions things to this effect that yes, there are negative alien agendas out there. There are negative beings that are influencing our solar system and our Earth. But in the cosmos, there is way, 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 way more positive race lines, benevolent beings, Christic beings, even just the neutral, compassionate beings out there than there are the negative alien agenda. But remember, we are in a free world, free will, which means that we have the right to choose to continue to put our head in the sand or to choose to begin to awaken to some of these possibilities. So, within that, we have to understand free will law is our greatest gift, and it is kind of our greatest Achilles heel. Because if we keep playing the victim victimizer program, we start forgetting that we are just another species like every other species out there. The human species is just another species. And we want to recognize that it's part of the evolution of species, that it's our job to become a brotherhood, if you will, or to become a conscious or a soul matrix of our own free will accord. And so that's what we are doing as we are attuning to the law of one and starting to really activate our double diamond heart. We start to become our own network. And as a strengthened network as a species, these negative aliens will not be able to infiltrate us. We are our own greatest saviors, if you will. So please know that it's important to know these things. But the love of the divine, there's so much of it. If we did not fully believe that humans were capable of fulfilling the role for which they were created, the role of Earth guardian and conscious co-creators of reality, we would not labor to bring you information you will need in your journey to success. Unlike those who attempt to hold you back, we do not underestimate your intelligence, your fortitude, and your ability to become responsible for the direction in which your destiny unfolds. We believe in your innate goodness and honor you for the noble things that in truth you are, or the noble being you are. Let us remind you of that nobility so that you may rediscover the beauty of your race and allow that beauty to burst forth into the universe, renewing all that it touches. May you yourselves be renewed in resurrecting the majesty of your multidimensional being. Next, we will explore the current interior agenda of holographic inserts and how these will be used in an attempt to direct you away from the truth and integrity that lives within you. Frequency fences. This one's important. This is one of the things that's actually starting to lessen and weaken right now. So, current time, as we're reading this in 2024, almost 30 years since this was written, 28-ish years since it was written. Um, we are seeing the frequency fences actually starting to shut down. So let's kind of remember what they are as we continue to assist the guardians and dismantling a lot of these things. So, the technology of the holographic insert holds great promise for furthering the development of your species. This ability, even if it was mechanically created, would revolutionize every aspect of your society. It would also begin to open your abilities to transverse your localized time portal system. The Zeta have not provided the data necessary for the time portals to be activated. They do not want the interior government or any other human to have access to a working knowledge of these systems. Instead, they have provided some information to the interior forces to appease them, but this data is distorted and incomplete. So the interior as well as the exterior scientific community still struggle with sending things back in time and making them disappear. Some progress has been made in the case of the latter. The Zeta are utilizing the interior's greed for power. They are helping to orchestrate the utilization of holographic inserts on large masses of people. Though the interior government thinks the Zeta are assisting them to put in place certain mass frequency control devices that will eventually have the power to scramble selected human brainwave patterns, thereby blocking out frequencies coming from source outside of government control, such as those transmitted by extraterrestrials and other dimensional groups, and also the frequency patterns emanating from the personal and collective soul matrix. But the Zeta are in actuality working towards orchestration of a totally different plan. Zeta are helping to create this frequency fence, but not in order to assist the interior government in creating a docile and obedient populace. The interior desires to control the mental and emotional forces within the populace in order to use individuals and masses to do their bidding. They are interested in creating a form of that will be able to easily neutralize simple human armies by setting itself up as an invisible big brother. They will not only be able to hoard and control the distribution of Earth's resources, but they hope to be able to explore and conquer new territories once the time portal codes are activated. Their purpose is to plunder for personal gain and for the thrill of the kill and bringing others under their dominion. Other abusive forces that do exist within the universe watch them and with amusement as the interior is playing right into their hands. As the interior moves silently forward with its plan of dominion, the Zeta helpers are using them to help fulfill their personal agenda. The interior is more concerned with keeping people distracted, fragmented, and confused so they do not notice that their freedom is being stolen outright from under them. The unenlightened Zeta have something else in mind. These factions of the Zeta race, resigning themselves to the probability that they would reach extinction before finding a way to return to their own planet and time continuum, decided to opt for the second best solution. If they could cultivate hybrids acclimated to the Earth environment, they would be able to repopulate the planet. There is one small obstacle in the way of this plan, however: the presence of the human race. Other species could easily be dominated and integrated into a Zeta regulated society, but humans will not be easy to subdue, and the Zeta know this. The Zeta acknowledge their present dependence upon the species for the provision of genetic material. They have a plan of segregating the global population into these possessing desirable genetic qualities and those who do not have qualities they care to reproduce. The humans chosen as breeders would be utilized to create a workforce, then supply Zeta needs to the best among them. Genetically, they would be used to create various strains of hybrid beings to strengthen and recolonize their settlement on Earth. Humans presently do not have the power to successfully ward off the Zeta through force. The planet would be plundered in the attempt to do so. Humans' greatest defense is becoming aware of what is taking place and uniting their energies with those willing to assist in the name of universal brotherhood. This is one more time. I want to read this. Humans' greatest defense is in becoming aware of what is taking place and uniting their energies with those willing to assist in the name of universal brotherhood. Again, remember, anyone willing to assist in the name of universal brotherhood, what are the negative aliens going to be doing to them? Defaming, cancel culture. They're going to be creating them with taglines of conspiracy, all kinds of things. Remember, a lot of these beings are here on the earth plane right now. Many do have the guise to take on human form. There are many humans that are actually assisting in a larger capacity of awareness than most of the populace. And we see most of these types of things then either being infiltrated or defamed, these kinds of things. And this is the primary reason, too, you guys, why whenever there's guardian race lines or forces, the negatively aligned will hijack those factions. They'll take their name and then they will create kind of subsidiaries that utilize their name, but as a negative energy or influence on the planet. So we see this through different things, like even taking the name Ashtar. There's all kinds of different factions There's all different kinds of factions of um federations and different types of councils that we're in a position that we're just like, I don't know, all the names sound so similar. Which one's good? Which one's not good? Which one's helping? Which one's not helping? So know this, it's not only humans that they're trying to cancel culture, defame or assassinate or get out of the picture, but it's also when it comes to the guardian races and forces, they will convolute the information so much that we don't know what to believe. And this again always comes back to your heart. It's very important to have that connection in the heart. So as we continue, the renegade Zeta must not be permitted to fulfill their plan. Though this plan is still in its early stages within your three-dimensional Earth system, this is not the case on several parallel and adjacent systems. One adjacent system in particular has been fully infiltrated, and those controlling that reality have their sights set upon expanding into your three-dimensional Earth system at a time coordinate that exists within your future. Humans that enjoy their present levels of freedom within the democracies of Earth and those who believe in the liberties of the free society had best take heed of the events now occurring within the adjacent systems as the groundwork for its interception, which is presently being set within your global community by the interior government forces. We will elaborate upon this adjacent Earth system in sections to follow, but for now, we will return to our discussion of the holographic inserts and how they are presently being used to direct the perceptions of your people. Previously, we mentioned that holographic inserts using themes popular within your traditions are being used in the test runs of the project. Most of these tests were orchestrated using the individuals or small groups of people, in which scenarios pertinent to these subjects were created and the emotional reaction patterns of the participants were studied. Attention is paid to perceptual range of the human subject as the Zeta are aware that there are great variations among the populace in regard to perceptual ability. They are attempting to find a consensual mean of frequency through which they can broadcast the holograms and hope to use a frequency fence to block out frequency bands that do not fall within that average range. In this way, large masses of people can be tuned into the particular range of holographic inserts and blocked from receiving frequencies that could create sense data that was in contradiction to the illusion of the insert. This is why they've had such a target against the indigo races, because the indigo races came in naturally at a frequency that starts to throw off that frequency fence. So remember, if you can think of the frequency fence, it's playing off of subbands within the Van Allen belt and then projects down into the Earth's sphere. And what it does is it basically keeps humanity, the whole, if you could simplify it, it keeps humans basically focused on basic survival and three-dimensional reality. Getting that new car, getting the best brand of jeans, having the coolest shoes, buying another house, or these kinds of things. It's the distraction energy that keeps people embedded in the 3D material reality, and it creates that disconnect to the soul matrix. That's why the heart is so important, because the fourth dimension is that first bandwidth into the soul matrix. The indigo race lines, the crystalline beings, the rainbow beings, the starseed beings, which are Rishik beings coming in, really have a frequency in your body that disrupts the frequency fence and also creates more targeting sometimes in earlier years from these beings. So that's why they don't want you to contradict the illusion that they're trying to insert. The inserts are being designed to engage the emotional faculties of the human. Themes deeply engraved within the minds of the people are being contrived into distorted interpretations of events that have basis in reality for the subjects. As Zeta have time portal access, they have been able to monitor some of the activities of the other extraterrestrials. Interdimensional and guardian groups who are planning to create encounters with humans for purposes of helping the populations to grow and evolve successfully. Though the Zeta will not be able to stop these helping groups or halt the implementation of the events they plan to create, they are able to scan the intended events and then create distorted versions of them through the holographic inserts. Over the next 20 years, which we're already past that timeline of when they were talking, over the next 20 years, alignments of certain key time portal structures are occurring, following the cycle intrinsic to your planetary placement within the galactic grid. These alignments make it easier for data to be entered into your system from other times and other dimensions. Many of the helping groups intend to use this opportunity to introduce new information and technologies that will assist in the evolution of your species. The Zeta in the interior are aware of this and they do not want this information to be made available to the masses as it was intended. They are planning now to raid certain of these positive agendas, creating misleading holographic inserts that will direct the perceptions and thoughts of the populace away from the applications of the positive agendas. The Zeta are using images, scenarios, and personages held sacred to the traditional religions to divert the people into submission, subservience, and blind obedience to the official and philosophies that rely upon congregational following of authorities, in which people are taught to trust the leader's interpretation of spirituality above their own spiritual comprehension, a practice that's coloring most of the world's traditional religions. It's really now, these are the primary targets for manipulation using holographic inserts. The Christian and Jewish faiths, along with some Eastern practices and traditions popular within the South American continent, have been singled out as primary testing grounds for the implementation of holographic inserts on a massive level. People who blindly follow the dictates of these traditions and those who lead them are especially vulnerable to the holographic manipulation. David Koresh and the Waco, Texas branch Davidians and Marshall Applewhite and the Heaven's Gate Group are two such organizations that have been manipulated by it through holographic insert technology. I think there's actually Netflix specials that you can watch on all of those stories now. We're so far forward into the future of this that you can actually go on to Netflix and probably watch these stories. The desired result of this manipulation is to sever the actual energetic connection of the individual to the personal soul matrix and reconnection to the individual to a group mind network existing within another dimensional structure. The Zeta are well aware of the multidimensional operation of the collective mind, as their own species existed for centuries under such a structure. I want to just simplify this really quick too, and also put out there, I do believe there's a Netflix special on Scientology. And it is probably one of the best descriptions out there of this dimensional time blending. And she doesn't mention the word thetans within the Voyagers 1. I don't even think she uses it in Voyagers 2, but later it comes forward that these Borgias and these thetans are another word or another way that these when it's talking about that they have taken over some of these other parallel earth realities. These are the beings, okay? And the dimensional blending you'll see is that they're utilizing organizations, and Scientology is probably of all of them the best way to actually see how this negative alien agenda has been trying to overrun the consciousness of humanity. If you watch it, your whole mind will just go, I can't believe. First of all, just compassion for those that got pulled into it. And then once you see it, you're like, I can't believe how we got pulled into it, right? So it's important to see these things because these very same tactics keep getting used over and over and over again. So when you hear about dimensional blending, it's not some big old thing that's happening in the world around you. What they're doing is they're pulling in your belief systems and blending the way you think with the way they think in an anti-Christic reality, so that you start to normalize it and even defend it within this reality. Think about how a cult works. It's really difficult for people to break out of a cult. And then there's like a whole deprogramming and deprocessing, and sometimes it's just a lot for them to go through. We need to go through that as an entire human species, you guys. We've all been pulled into a cult. And it's time for us to go ahead and start getting the therapy and the clearing for these cult practices so that we can align to the guardians again. It's just maybe another way of looking at it. So how how dire this is for us to get our sovereignty back. um so, though the mechanics of this endeavor are complex, the concept is simple. All people exist as an individualized embodiments of a greater energetic identity. This greater identity can be viewed as a portion of their conscious awareness, and this too is large in energy volume for us to even fit into the limited confines of a body structure. The body and the consciousness focused within it exists within this greater pool of energy, and it is this energy that creates the body, sets the autonomic body process, and continually feeds the body life force energy. There are certain structures that link the body, mind, and emotions to the soul matrix of energy. It is possible for those who understand how to manipulate the subtle body energies or subtle energy bodies to splice an individual from one soul matrix into another matrix and disconnect the bioenergetic circuitry from the original soul. This process can be used to assist individuals under certain conditions, but it can also be used to disable them from connecting with their greater identity and innate spiritual connection. When used in negative applications, you can view this process as soul robbing, as the physical embodiment is stolen from its original soul matrix. This is precisely what the Zeta have in mind as part of their agenda. By linking those selected from the human populace into a false matrix, part of the original Zeta collective mind matrix, humans would be easily controlled, as the false matrix would continually sustain certain holographic inserts, making them appear as permanent features of reality. Any sensually illusional reality can be sustained in such a way, and the humans involved would have no idea or memory indicating that anything was out of order. As the individual becomes disconnected from its original soul matrix, all memory contained within its DNA and cellular pattern is wiped away, as it is the soul matrix that acts as the programming device and storage house for human memory. Why do they attack the heart? Why do they want to break the heart? Why do they want to disconnect us from our heart? Why do they try to get us to lock our heart down, shut our heart down, turn our heart off? This is the answer right here. Um, our cellular pattern is wiped away when we don't have connection to our soul. When the human is fully connected to the false matrix, the original connection to the soul can be disengaged, and the new matrix will program the DNA and download the memories purposefully programmed into the false matrix. At this point in the process, there would be a brief lapse of all memory and a in short-term memory functions, while the cellular code begins to process its new set of instructions. There may be trace memories from the original soul program that arise to awareness in ghost image form, which will occasionally create severe mental disturbances for the human subject. Pieces of memory from the old program may emerge spontaneously from cellular residue and interface with the operational instructions from the new program, distorting the electrical impulse patterns to the brain as well as the chemical balances of the human body. This is the very detailed way of saying Mandela effect. We've all been seeing it, we've all been watching it, where there's so many things that if you watch a movie now or an old cartoon or an old thing that you're like, no, I remember it this way. But if you watch it now, it says something completely different. Or there's people that says, "Oh, I remember history happening this way." No, 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 I remember it happening this way. This is it. This is what they're talking about. So when they're talking about another reality coming in and downloading into our memories, it creates massive overlays of Mandela effect experiences within us. And then we get all confused where we're like, no, that's not how I remember it. I know it didn't happen that way. There's been a lot more of that happening lately, almost to where there's people been now gathering whole databases of all the Mandela effects they're catching in the field. And this is also a guardian call, I would think, for all of us to really recognize what is going on at this time and how important we are to actually start to correct timelines. This is really important. Otherwise, they're going to just try to keep overlaying their stuff into our reality, and we won't even know when we've been overtaken. In severe cases, the individual will be unable to hold the consistent present moment focus in time and will flip back and forth between a multitude of identity fragments that represents pieces of memory from both residual traces of the old soul matrix, not only memory bits from the individual, but also from the entire bank of identities stored in the soul matrix, and fragmented pieces of the new program and the entire contents of the Zeta Collective false matrix. The human biology is not designed to assimilate such an onslaught of inconsistent electrical data and will be biologically unable to process the memory fragments into a coherent focus of identity in time. Should the unenlightened Zeta plan from the old agenda reach fulfillment, your populace would literally be robbed of its individual and collective memory, creating biological puppets, and the Zeta could program in any way they choose. This way, they will be able to take advantage of certain desirable strains of humans while easily controlling them by directing the contours of the individual and mass identities. I think we could easily call that transhumanism, taking away our identities. The complexity of orchestrating a mental takeover on a species level is vast, but it has been done before at different times within all of the dimensions. The aftermath of such a project is always disastrous in the long run for the planet and local galactic structure, as well as for the life forms existing within those systems. There are areas within the intergalactic and multidimensional grid that at different times have literally been blown out of the grid and cut off from the reality fields of which they were part. Like humans and their biological individuals, planets and galaxies also possess a soul matrix of which the soul matrices of all systems inhabitants are a part. All of these grids or matrices are created through and connect to the time matrix. The time matrix is the energy distribution system which carries life force energy from source into the dimensional systems. When a planet or galaxy is blown out of the grid of its soul matrix, which directly connects it to the time matrix and thus perpetual energy supply, its energy and its evolutionary potentials become finite. The system falls into digression and its finite energy quotient is expended and the system has no way to replenish its supply. The existing energy is recycled within the system but will eventually become negated as the recycling continually reduces the thrust or power contained within its particles. The matter forms within such a system deplete, atrophy, and eventually, sometimes over hundreds of thousands of years, to implode their blueprint, and thus the possibility of regeneration or replication. Fragmented into unorganized units of energy and consciousness. This fragmented energy is the state of being indicated by your concept of oblivion. It is the condition of your religious concepts of Hades or hell, and it was intended to depict in symbolic form your concept of purgatory, which describes the experience of living within a system that was cut off from the grid before its pending implosion. It has also been used to indicate the state of being for the personality who has become severed from its own soul matrix. Zeta planet destruction. All within the time matrix grid is interconnected. And when a planet or galaxy is blown off the grid a hole is left within the grid fabric. This hole affects everything within the area of activity surrounding the hole, as energy flowing around the broken grid lines hits blank spots or breaks in pattern. The grid lines within the time matrix represents time continua or passageways of linear time sequencing. When energy approaches the hole in the fabric of time matrix, it is magnetically pulled into the hole. Once it enters the hole, the time sequence organization that it originally carried as part of the time matrix, it becomes scrambled and the energy is no longer able to re-enter the time matrix from the position in which it first entered the hole. This energy can take the form of an individual in biological form, a personal soul matrix or soul, a planet or galaxy, or the entire galactic soul matrix. When one element from within given time continuum enters the whole, its own sequential program will sever as a beacon for all other energies possessing that particular coding. This beacon not only broadcasts its signal back into the time matrix through its electrical particles, which act as transmitters, but it also begins to draw in like energy through its magnetic particles, which act as magnetic receivers. The element lost within the hole then pulls in more and more and more energy from its home system. The holes we are referring to are, of course, the phenomena you describe as black holes. As described in previous sections, the zeta originally entered your system as they searched for solutions involving conditions that occurred upon their own planet, Apaxium Lao. So they give the name now. The conditions the Zeta hope to remedy are precisely those described above. Through their experimentation with dimensional frequency blending, they created a situation in which a minute hole was ripped into the frequency pattern of the regions involved in that dimensional range. Or intended merger of dimensional fields was not successful as the whole would not allow the area of frequency blending to stabilize into a consistent particle code pattern that would allow for a stable linear time sequence to take hold. The blended dimensional reality field was kept open for several hundred years before the zeta became aware of the whole. A great amount of energy from the blended region fell into the whole and systematically pulled in more and more and more energy. So basically, they're saying that every time one of these black holes gets created, it's kind of like not realizing there's a leak in, like, say, your swimming pool, or there's a leak in something, and it takes, because it's such a vast field, it takes sometimes a long time to realize there's a leak or a hole, and then usually by the time you realize it, a significant amount of quota or energy or water, if it's a pool, has been drained out, and that's what calls your attention to it. Black holes will pull in first those forms that possess energy coding that is consistent with the coding of the particles that exist at the site of the hole. That is, the items to disappear are those whose particle structures are in the continuum or grid stand where the break in pattern has occurred. In the Zeta incident, this particle compatibility emerged within certain elemental components of the outer atmosphere of their home planet. Over centuries, there became an obvious depletion of this elemental component within their atmosphere, which is what led the Zetas to suspect that there was a problem with their dimensional blending project. The hole was finally located and identified by observing the rate and form of depletion of controlled samples of the outer atmosphere. The depletion rate was accelerated when the samples were placed in various locations upon the planet. They were able to pinpoint the hole by observing particle movement and following the path of accelerated particle depletion for the element in question. They were able to follow the beacons emitted by the particles within the hole, but only to a certain point at which the beacon's minute electrical emissions would disappear. It took several generations to discover that these particles were pulling in an exponentially expansive quantity of matter. The particles would disappear as the scrambling of their base code time structure occurred. The original code was unraveled, its elements dispersed within the reality fields of the black hole. The Zeta realized that this condition was a result of the dimensional blend, and so they hoped that by undoing the blend and closing the mediation zone between the dimensional portals that had been forced open, that they could effectively disengage the black hole. What they did not realize is that once the hole is created, it will continue to exist until all energy that passed through it is reclaimed and restored to its original time sequence organization. They were able to close the mediation zone effectively. And when they observed the area where the hole had been, the hole was no longer there. The Zeta assumed that they had closed the hole when they closed the mediation zone territories in which it had existed. This was not the case. The mediation zone had been created by merging certain frequency patterns of the third dimensional and other dimensional versions of their planet. The frequency patterns of each were bent slightly until they came into range of each other. Then an artificial frequency splice was added to serve as a bridge between the two frequency bands. This bridge forced open an existing dimensional portal and kept it open as long as the bridge was in place. This is the manipulation process that goes against universal law, as it throws the entire time cycle out of which it was a part of, and the synchronization out of it with the time matrix. The black hole was still encoded within the frequency patterns of both dimensions, and when the bridge was closed, the whole pattern fragmented, changing location within the outer atmosphere of both planets. Again, it took generations to rediscover the continued existence and new location of the hole, and by this time, the genetic mutations that this project had initiated began to show themselves. Knowing that the whole was responsible for their declining species, they hoped to retrieve and reorganize the lost energies so as to reverse the genetic mutation and restore health to their species. Though they had the technology to seal off the hole and stop it from pulling energy, they did not do this because the hope of reversing the mutation was within retrieving the energy from the hole and permanently closing the structure. The Zeta could no longer reside within their planet's atmosphere, and so they decided to evacuate and temporarily relocate to another planet within an adjacent dimension to your own, where they could continue with the project of retrieving the energies from the hole. They had not planned on anyone raiding their project, but that is what took place. Another more advanced group within a surrounding galaxy knew the danger of keeping the black hole open. It was pulling energy at an alarming rate and posed a serious threat to the entire time matrix coordinate that was home to the Zeta and many others. The black hole was sealed, a process which took time and accelerated its magnetism. The Zeta home planet and its dimensional counterpart were sucked in, leaving only a small portion of the planetary soul matrix behind within the time matrix. It is through this event that the Zeta became trapped within your system and the others to which it had migrated. Literally homeless and rapidly declining, they had no seek another solution. We hope that this little story about the Zeta will serve as an education to your scientists who play with small particle mechanics before they have the knowledge to understand the consequences of their actions. Ooh, yeah. I think the collider might be what they're referring to. Holographic inserts and matrix transplantation. We're getting not just a few more pages, you guys. Holographic inserts and time matrix transplantation. Now we will resume our discussion about the Zeta plan to use holographic inserts and matrix transplantation to orchestrate a mental takeover of the human species. When a soul robbery or forced matrix transplant occurs, when the human is removed from its connection to its organic soul matrix and connection to another, for example, the cord of energy that once connected the human to the soul matrix is left hanging, so to speak. This cord spews out energy from the soul matrix, just as your finger would spew blood if the tip was severed. If this energy leakage is not stopped, the soul matrix itself would become depleted, as well as the energy structures that feed it, and a large buildup of energy would occur within the planetary grid. This energy buildup would follow the path of the particles carrying its code. The human who had been transplanted to another matrix structure would be natural receiver of this energy, as the biological structure of the human is closed-circuited into the new matrix. The energy would then be drawn into another dimensional Earth version or parallel universe. The individual residing in that system who represents the implied counterpart of the human living within your system. We will not go into the mechanics of the universal physics of this transmission, so it is enough to say that we say here that you have a reflection or a double or a doppelganger, as some of you might call it, residing within a parallel system that represents the antiparticle to your particle. This double is often called your light body in your terms, or sometimes the shadow. Both terms can be misleading, so we will use the terminology which we are more familiar. We refer to the double as the Doller imprint, or dolus for short. In other writings, we will elaborate upon the dolus and its counterpart. For now, you need to know to follow our discussion. All you need to know to follow our discussion is that the dolus will be the recipient of that spewing energy from the forced matrix transplant. This errant energy will emerge within a portion of the double subtle energy bodies. Humans and other biological organisms are connected to the soul matrix by strands or cords of energy. The cords run from the core unit of identity for that person as held within the soul matrix and extends outward to a sac at the end. Some in your time refer to this sac as the tissue capsule. We call it the nadial capsule or the nadis. The nadis is a literal sac of energy that surrounds your physical body. It contains all of the life force energy you will use in one lifetime as a single incarnation in time and space. The process of growth in your terms is the process of bringing the energies from within the nadis through the biological form, thus expanding that form. As energy leaves the nadis and enters into the body, it must first pass through the two inner layers of the nadis. These inner nodal structures are known in your time as the mental and emotional bodies, and they give you the qualities of a being you know as mental awareness or thinking and emotional cognition or feeling. The errant energy spewing from the severed cord are rechanneled into the dolus or other dimensional double through its center point. The excess energy stimulates the opening of that center point within the dolus. These energies then become part of the subtle energy bodies of that double, first entering the mental area, then filtering into the emotional body. If the physical body of the double does not rapidly expand, which it cannot do if blocks in the mental body are present, to accommodate the new energy, this energy will build up within the emotional body of the double as erratic electrical impulse, which will throw the emotional balance out of whack, and with the chemical and hormonal balances within the physical. If left unchecked, this condition will cause acceleration of the aging process as the erratic patterns block the clear flow of the energy from the nadis. If the double is able to reactivate the center point located near the heart region in the physical body, somewhat to the right of the heart, and often called the heart chakra, opening the channel for new energy for the soul matrix to flow in, the new soul energy will reorganize the errant patterns if it can get through the mental body patterns. Expanding your mind is no joke. It is a very important energy process, and the soul energy will then regulate the flow of the errant energy into and through the body in a way more harmonious to its rhythms. The energy will then pass into the nadis where the body can draw from it within its own rhythm pattern. If the double cannot reactivate the center point and connection to the soul, open its energy systems to that of the soul matrix, the double will experience emotional distress and imbalance, which will lead to disease of the body and early death. In this case, there will be energy left within the nadis that the body was unable to process. The double in the other dimension, the one who received the forced matrix transplant, is no longer available to receive the energy. And so the energy becomes trapped within that dimension where it must wait until the time cycles allow it to reintegrate with the soul matrix. this is a really long drawn out way of talking about how our physical identity, so our identity that we think, oh, I am, and whatever your name is, with your mental body, emotional body, and then even the astral body, which is you're starting to tap into your soul level identity, which then starts to tap into your angelic identity. Um, these have all been segregated and separated, and the nadis are not supposed to be disconnected from each other. And if we don't have a complete connection to your mental body or your emotional body or your astral body, and learn how to clean out all of the not you from those spaces so that you actually reintegrate from higher mind, higher self, basically what it's saying is that it imbalances the energy quota in all the fields. You are not a whole being, you are fragmented, and those fragmentations can't pass through. So basically what it says is that whenever there's imbalanced quota within all of your layers of you, reincarnation happens. You basically get continuously trapped to the earth field in the third dimensional realm, and you will just keep reincarnating here over and over until you learn how to activate your soul, oversoul, or Christ avatar God. The identity, the individual human, for example, and its dolas, its double, exist as one identity package within the soul matrix. There are 12 such identity packages within one soul matrix, each being extended into different time-space continuums within the dimensional systems. All of these identity packages, which we call aspects or Tauran, exist at once within the soul matrix and time matrix. Each experience its own line of linear development within its respective time space location. This group of 12 constitutes one soul family, and the existence of one aspect or one person implies the existence of the other 11 aspects. The soul family, which we call the Dora, moves in cyclic fashion within the time matrix. Within these cycles, each aspect has its own smaller cycles that constitutes its passage through time or its lifespan. There is a sequential relationship to the aspect or the Tauran cycles, which implies the correlation between the births and deaths of its incarnates or its Tauran aspects. In the case of soul robbery, through forced matrix transplant, the early demise of the double or the dolus effect of the entire soul matrix cycle, we call the cycles of the soul matrix the Audent cycles, and the smaller aspect cycles the Tauran cycles. All of the Tauran are accelerated in their rhythms, and all will reach depletion of cellular energy sooner than they would have otherwise. All will thus leave residual nadial energy within their respective dimensions, which will become trapped there unless at least one of the Tauran are able to activate the center point and accelerate their physical body enough to allow the residual energies of all the other Tauran to be expanded into their own nadial field. If one is able to perform this feat and complete its own nadial composition, then the soul matrix can move out of the dimensional bands involved. The soul matrix can involve the soul matrix can evolve in this case. The soul matrix cannot leave the dimensional octave it is in until all of its residual energies are pulled back into the soul matrix. So you can see if the Zeta implement their plan of forced matrix transplant upon large numbers of humans, a vast number of other individuals and soul families, Doras, and soul matrices will also be adversely affected. They will become stuck within their positions in the time matrix and unable to move until those trapped energies are released. So, one quick note, we have like one more page left. Quick note is to say that there are multiple aspects of you from a soul perspective. Every single aspect kind of has an initial goal of waking up and remembering. And whatever identity can wake up and remember can actually be that rescue mission for all the other 11 aspects, if you will. So, this is why doing soul retrieval, healing our soul fragments, becoming whole, activating our Christ avatar God self is so important, because it's affecting our entire tree of life. in this. It's also another way for us to get to see why other guardian forces assist us. So, there's a lot of benevolent guardian forces, other like extraterrestrial, multidimensional races, and so on that are supporting at this time. The Andromedans being one of them, as a good example, and the Arcturians also as one of them, as a good example of why are they helping. Well, right here it's saying that it affects their realities too, as above, so below. Had different free will times in which they've become entangled with some of these things. And so there is kind of a benefit in that we're all helping each other. And why there's never going to be a savior that's going to come in and fix things for us and do it for us, because they need us to step up as ambassadors just as much as we need them in a way to help us kind of know how to manage that ambassadorship so that we become the galactic citizens again. So this is really important for us to realize. It's like, this is kind of, in a way, why is there such, they call it, the earth is the center point of all of this. This is why we are part of a larger drama that is happening in our universal matrix. Perhaps now you will be able to comprehend the serious nature of our communications. Much is at stake within this human zeta drama, most of which humans do not understand. The events and practices we have mentioned in this section all have great direct bearing upon the future of your system, and the plan to begin the aforementioned mental takeover is now beginning to emerge within your three-dimensional Earth system. We have explained some of the methods by which this takeover will be orchestrated, from its inception through holographic inserts to its accumulation in the Zeta Collective Mind link up through force matrix transplant. This is the plan that humans can help to redirect by making a strong, genuine connection to their own soul matrix, their Dora, and learning to handle themselves within holographic inserts and Zeta abductions. These things are already going on around you, whether or not you're aware of them or whether or not you choose to believe that it's true, they're still happening. Those who understand can do a great deal to assist themselves, their soul families, and their fellow humans if they are willing to grow and expand and learn. You might wonder how such a massive mental takeover could be pulled off behind your back, so to speak. It is more so being done over your heads, literally, as the manipulations involved are being conducted to a large degree from dimensional frequency bands that are higher than your range of perception. This is the plan that will take time to implement, so that the sooner that you become aware of these events, the sooner you will be able to redirect your future. In the following sections, we will cover methods by which you can protect yourselves from being brought under the control of the aforementioned frequency fence. We will offer suggestions as to how holographic inserts can be maneuvered, and also some clues to look for that will allow you to watch the progression of the events of which we speak. In closing this section, let us leave you with one final example of how this plan will be implemented, an example that may illustrate the power of the holographic insert to human perception. What do you suppose might happen if 10,000 devout Christians suddenly saw Christ float down upon a cloud or a spaceship? The skies tremble and open as the Savior in the flesh levitates down and begins to touch the heads of his beloved. Then he says, "Come with me to the promised kingdom," as a brilliant set of pearly gates opens behind him. "Follow," he utters as he turns and begins to walk through the gates. Do you think most of those devotees would say no? And who would be the wiser, except those creating the holographic insert? If those masses passed beyond the gates in ecstasy only to be marched through the dimensional portal, a portal their biological forms are not prepared to encounter, who would mourn these people as they entered the portal and were incinerated upon contact, their bodies destroyed and their consciousness fragmented into the ethers, while onlookers watched them move joyfully through the gates to heaven? a rather ingenious way to evacuate a planet of undesirables to clear the real estate for resettlement. Even those who do not go would not believe that anything bad had happened. The masses simply went with Christ to the promised lands and had been foretold, as had been foretold. This is what a holographic insert can do. And some of the Zeta, the unenlightened ones following the old agenda, are quite capable of this type of travesty. Not only are they capable of this is precisely the type of holographic drama they have planned once the frequency fence is in place. If you can find security in the concept of being sheep, then please make sure you know who your shepherd is. All right, so we're going to end. We made it through chapter 4. Um, and this is all really important. Remember again, my Indigo Star family, my Blu-ray family, all of my Christ Star family, um, we are the monkey in their wrench, so to speak, or the monkey wrench in their machinery. I said that totally wrong. We're the monkey wrench in the gears, so to speak, because the frequencies we have come in emanating are literally messing up their frequency fence from doing what they need it to do. So with so much love, I invite you to take what resonates for you. Please, by all means, make this connection to you as your higher self, to your guardian family. Please do the internal housekeeping to really clear out all of the old programmings. Remember, any divine energies that are coming from our Christic races or families that are interacting with you are going to interact with love, with compassion, with oneness. They are very firm sometimes. They do expect us to become more mature but they are always doing it with love. Anything in your thoughts, your minds, your emotions, or your field that is degrading, putting you down, making you feel less than, bringing up fear, sadness, worry, or any of these things is not coming from Christ light. Please utilize your discernment in all that you do. And with so much love, thank you again for allowing me to share this journey with you. And I will see you